Pokemon's gender system is surprisingly complex. So what's up, fellas? I'm Matt, and today we've got a bunch of facts about genders to share with you all. Alright, let's get started.
What's up? I'm Elias, and Litleo and Pyroar have a 7 in 8 chance to be female. That makes them the only evolution line in the game with a unique gender ratio. The Pyroar line is pretty clearly based on lions, and the 7 female to 1 male ratio is a reference to how prides are actually structured.
Real-life prides consist of roughly 15 lions on average, but some of them have far more members than that. Prides are mostly made up of female lions and their cubs, and only a few adult males at most. Pyroar's extreme gender ratio is a reflection of that, and its Pokedex entries mention other parallels to real lions as well. Female lions do most of the hunting to feed the pride, and the same goes for female Pyroar.
Now let's take a look at the opposite gender ratio. Quite a few Pokemon have a ratio of 7 males to 1 female, which serves a functional purpose within the game. Most Pokemon that are 87.5% male were initially given as gift Pokemon, and a lot of them can only be obtained once or twice per save file in their debut games. By picking this gender ratio, it becomes harder to breed for more copies of the same Pokemon.
If you breed a male Pokemon with a female one, the egg species will almost always be from the mother's evolutionary line. So if you're playing through Pokemon Fire Red, and you've got yourself a male Charizard, you can't create a Charmander army by breeding with a female Arbok. In this case, every egg you generate will contain a baby Ekans instead.
Starter Pokemon are meant to be rare in universe, and their gender ratio helps to keep it that way. The same goes for the Eevee, Zoroark, Lucario, and Togepi lines, which are also very exclusive in their debut games. The fossil Pokemon are 87.5% male as well, with the exception of the genderless ones from Gen 8. The elemental monkeys are gift Pokemon in Black and White, but they can also be found in the wild later in the game. They were given the same gender ratio anyway, which emphasizes their role as pseudo-starter Pokemon. Snorlax isn't a gift Pokemon in Gens 1 and 2, but it is a very limited static encounter.
Am I the only one who feels like the hate for the elemental monkeys is a little bit overblown?
I never saw anything wrong with them.
They're fine, they're not my favorites, but they do what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, it's a fire monkey, a grass monkey, and a water monkey.
This gender ratio makes breeding harder, but for what it's worth, Ditto kind of throws all that out the window. As soon as you catch one of these, you can make as many Chikorita eggs as you want, even if you only have a male one. But Ditto has a low catch rate, lower than the pseudo-legendaries in fact, and is a pretty rare wild encounter in most games. So if you have a Ditto in your save file, chances are you went looking for it deliberately, and you're using it for post-game activities like shiny hunting or competitive breeding. Most people aren't going to use Ditto in the middle of a playthrough and pull up to the Elite Four with 6 Blastoise.
There are 5 other Pokemon with a gender ratio of 7 males to 1 female. Relicanth isn't a fossil Pokemon, but it's still an ancient species that's been around for 100 million years. That makes it very similar to Omanite and Friends in terms of vibes, which is probably why it was thrown into this category. Salandit and Combee have female-only evolutions in the form of Salazzle and Vespiquen respectively. By making the base forms overwhelmingly male, it's harder to find a member of the species that can evolve. Yeah, when I first played Sun and Moon, I didn't know that male Salandit couldn't evolve.
Oh, so you were waiting forever, huh?
Yep, got it to like level 47 until I looked it up and was like, God damn it, I gotta like go all the way back.
Wait, did you go and catch another one?
No, I think I just gave up. I think I replaced it with something else. I don't even remember.
The last 2 Pokemon with this property are Kubfu and Urshifu. These guys are legendary Pokemon that can't breed, meaning their gender ratio doesn't affect their rarity at all. In Pokemon Sword and Shield, you get 1 Kubfu during the Isle of Armor story, and you're still limited to 1 without trading, even if you've got a Ditto. They were given a ratio of 7 males to 1 female anyway, probably to make them fit in with the other gift Pokemon.
That being said, Kubfu and Urshifu didn't really need a gender ratio in the first place. Most other legendary Pokemon can only be caught once per playthrough in their debut games, but they're usually genderless. Game Freak could have easily kept these guys genderless as well, especially since gender rarely makes a difference during gameplay. But since they did give Kubfu and Urshifu genders, a 7 to 1 ratio is the most logical choice. Am I the only one who mixes up Kubfu with Cubchoo?
You are the only person I've heard make that mistake, but also, you're fine, I don't entirely blame you.
Because when I saw like Kubfu and Urshifu, I was like, that's not what Cubchoo evolves into.
Next up, let's look at the 50-50 gender ratio, which is the most common by far. Over 60% of all Pokemon are equally likely to be male or female. Almost. In several generations, a 50-50 gender ratio actually results in slightly more males. In Gens 3 through 5, a Pokemon's gender was determined by its personality value, specifically the last byte of said value.
This byte can have 256 possible values, ranging from 0 to 255. In theory, this should make a 50-50 gender ratio very easy to set up. If the last byte is at least 100 128, make the Pokemon male. Otherwise, make it female. In this case, there would be 128 values assigned to each gender, and male Jellicent would be exactly as common as female ones. But that's not quite what's happening under the hood. If a Pokemon has a 50-50 gender ratio, the game will set the gender threshold to 127 instead of 128. That means there are slightly more values that'll result in a male Pokemon. In turn, the exact ratio ends up being 129 males to 127 females. So you know the Ditto face?
Yes.
I think originally that Ditto face was from one specific Ditto.
Duplica's Ditto in the anime, yes.
Yeah, who had trouble replicating faces. Maybe you were the one who told that to me.
I don't think I was, no. Generation H gender ratios are also ever so slightly skewed, because a brand new system was implemented in these games. In Sword and Shield as well as BDSP, personality values aren't used to determine gender anymore. The game will generate a separate number between 1 and 253, and that number will assign genders instead. Since the game is working with an odd number of values, it's not possible for the gender ratio to be exactly 50-50. A Pokemon like Golduck will be roughly 50.2% male instead. That being said, most wild encounters in Sword and Shield ignore gender ratios entirely because of a glitch. More on that in a future video.
While we're on the topic, the 3-to-1 and 7-to-1 gender ratios are slightly off in most games as well. Generation 9 is a partial exception though, because these games choose a random number out of 100 possible values, which is a much cleaner range. The 3-to-1 gender ratios are exactly right in Generation 9, because 100 is divisible by 4. Machamp's gender ratio is exactly 75% male, because 75 out of the 100 possible values will give you a male one.
100 is divisible by 2 as well, so the 50-50 gender ratio is perfectly accurate too. 50 values will give you a male Pokemon, and the other 50 will give you a female one. The 7-to-1 gender ratios are still a little funky though, partially because 8 doesn't divide evenly into 100. In Scarlet and Violet and Legend ZA, starters and fossils and whatnot are 88% male, but Litleo and Pyro are 89% female.
In Gen 6 and 7,
Elias.
The game generates a random number between 1 and 252 instead. In these games, a 50-50 gender ratio actually means 50-50 once again, but it doesn't work out as nicely for the 3-to-1 and 7-to-1 ratios. Gothitell's gender ratio is listed as 75% female, but the actual percentage is roughly 75.4. Starter Pokemon are also 88.1% male instead of 87.5. Quick Info Blast.
I'd like to point out, everybody, what I had written in the script was, in Gen 6 and 7, don't laugh. And then Elias laughed, so I think he realized, oh, I can't say that anymore, can I?
No, I read it, and then I was like, why would I say don't laugh? And I could just laugh, and it would be funnier, because it's
You're awful, you know that? Gender ratios being uneven so often does mimic real life quite nicely, because the same thing happens with humans. On average, there are about 105 baby boys born for every 100 girls. Over time, though, the ratio starts to even itself out, because women live longer than men. The global sex ratio is currently 101 to 100, but the United Nations expects it to get even closer to 50-50 in the next 25 years. We doubt that Game Freak is making an intentional reference here, but anything is possible.
There's one generation where all the gender ratios are accurate. In Gen 2, genders are calculated with each Pokemon's attack DVs, or determinate values, for long. As an example, a Quillfish with 3 DVs in attack will always be female, but a Quillfish with 10 DVs will always be male. DVs have 16 possible values, which is nice because that's a power of 2. That means the gender ratios wind up looking like this, which is exactly what you'd expect.
Before we started recording this video, Elias was telling me about how much he thinks the Pope would like White Monster.
I think the Pope would love White Monster. Caffeine in the Bible.
This system works well for determining genders, but it does have a notable side effect. Male Pokemon will always have a higher attack DV compared to female Pokemon of the same species. That means if you take a male and female Steelix, for example, and max out their stat experience, the male one will always have a higher attack stat. In Gen 2 only, male Pokemon are objectively physically stronger than female ones.
Most Pokemon won't change genders when they evolve, but there have been 2 exceptions over the course of the series. The first is Shedinja, because of course it is. This Goofus Maloofus is full of exceptions. Nincada has a standard ratio of 50-50, and the same goes for its primary evolution Ninjask. But Shedinja is listed as a genderless Pokemon, since it's just the empty shell that Nincada discards upon evolving.
I think now would be a good time to talk about some terminology. There are many Pokemon that are neither male or female, and people sometimes argue about what they should be called. Shedinja isn't genderless, it's gender unknown, and and so on and so on. Official Pokemon media has used many different terms to describe this category, so there isn't a single correct answer. Genderless and gender unknown are both valid terms, and so are no gender, indeterminate gender, and neuter.
Maybe it's because I'm a pet owner.
Yeah.
But neutering to me has always implied the initial existence of a sex or gender that was then removed through surgery.
They say that on The Price is Right all the time, like Bob Barker would remind everybody, get your pet spayed or neutered. Drew Carey does the same thing now.
In Gens 3 through 5, Azurill might also change genders when it evolves into Marill. Azurill's gender ratio is 75% female, whereas its evolution is 50-50. Since the ratios don't match, a female Azurill had about a 1 in 3 chance to become a male Marill. If the last byte of its personality value is between 127 and 190 inclusive, it'll switch genders upon evolving. Starting in Gen 6, Azurill's gender will be locked in permanently as soon as it appears. It still has a different ratio compared to its evolutions, but it'll always retain its gender when it evolves into Marill.
It's occurring to me that I've never heard you say that Pokemon's name out loud before.
Marill?
Azurill.
How am I supposed to say it?
I say Azurill.
Like Azur?
The final evolution is Azumarill.
I say Azumarill, but I say Azurill.
Starting in Generation 4, many Pokemon look different depending on their gender. As an example, male Bidoof's tail has 5 curls, but female Bidoof only has 3.
I'm looking this up. I didn't know that. Ah, I see. So you can't see it from the front because the other 2 are below the other 3.
Many older Pokemon are given gender differences in Diamond and Pearl as well. Female Rattata, Raticate, and Swalot have shorter whiskers than their male counterparts, male Nuzleaf has a bigger leaf, and female Wobbuffet has lipstick. We have a few differences we want to highlight in detail today.
The entire Blaziken line was given gender differences in Gen 4. Female Blaziken has a smaller head crest compared to the male one. Female Combusken has smaller feathers on its head, and Torchic's gender difference is a contender for the most subtle in the game. If you look at male and female Torchic from behind, you'll notice a tiny speck on the male one, which female Torchic doesn't have. In older games, this speck was the size of a singular pixel. That was intentional, the single pixel difference. It wasn't like an artist just accidentally skipped over a single pixel.
This was intentional. I'm about to explain why. This gender difference is likely a reference to a real-life technique called vent sexing, which is one of the primary ways to determine if a recently hatched chicken is male or female. Without going into too much detail and possibly getting this video demonetized, male chicks have a small bump inside of them, which is what male Torchic speck would represent, whereas female chicks typically don't.
Oh, this is the spec?
Yeah.
I found it. Oh my goodness.
You found it.
I found it. Oh, wow. Wait, even on Pokemon Home, it looks like a single pixel.
For further information, go watch this episode of American Dad. Or just read Torchic's Bulbapedia page and see where that takes you. As for us, we're just gonna go next before YouTube explodes our channel.
Out of the 102 Pokemon with gender differences, 63 of them hail from Gens 1 through 3. Out of those 63 Pokemon, 62 of them were given a difference in Gen 4, which was their first opportunity to get one. The only odd one out here is Eevee, who missed out on getting a gender difference the first time around, but was eventually given one in Gen 7. Kind of. For the first 6.5 generations, the tip of Eevee's tail always had several narrow scallops, but its design was slightly updated in Let's Go Eevee. If your partner Eevee is male, its tail will look the same. But in the off chance you get a female one, the scallops on its tail will be bigger and rounder. This gender difference was only given to partner Eevee at first, but starting in Sword and Shield, it applies to all female Eevee.
I assume you want to look this up too?
Yep, beat me to it. I see that the patterning is more like heart-shaped for the female and more serrated for the male.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I like this gender difference because it looks more like a heart. It's kind of like female like Pikachu in reverse. Yeah, except the heart's facing the other way. Here's one thing that's always bugged me about gender differences. Hippowdon's coloration is completely different depending on its gender, and I think that's neat. For whatever reason though, the Pokemon Company very rarely highlights that fact. Even though male and female Hippowdon are so visually distinct, nearly all of its official art depicts the male one. In fact, female Hippowdon has no official Sugimori art whatsoever.
Oh, they have different shinies as well. I didn't know that.
But wait, there's more, and it's worse. Hippowdon has made a few major appearances in the anime, but said Hippowdon have always been male. I kid you not, folks. The first time I saw a female one in game, I thought it was shiny. Usually when a Pokemon's gender differences are this noticeable, the games and anime will do a better job of highlighting the male and female versions. I think it's a real shame that Hippowdon hasn't gotten that same kind of treatment.
The fossil Pokemon are 87.5% male too, as well, because you're dealing with numbers. And you don't want to say 2 when you're dealing with numbers.
Whatever.
That's actually something that I lost points on an essay for at U, and now will never make that mistake ever again for as long as I live.
I don't think that's a mistake. I think that's just your professor being salty.
Well, I got docked points for it, so you will be too.
I'm being graded on my script. What is going on? Please do not be alarmed by the length of the document, by the way. This is going to be 2 parts, and I started writing part 2 down here, but we're not ready to record the second half yet.
So we're recording all 102 pages today?
Where'd you get that number from, buddy?
11 plus 1. I have my starter Pokemon and my 5 pickup Bidoofs.
I mean, that's the dream right there.
Well, Matt got carried away again. We've got a lot more tidbits about genders in the Pokemon series to share, but we're gonna have to save them for a part 2. Get lost.